recording has started.
When you are able, victory wins. There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power of the land. There is power, power, wonder-working power. Praise the blood of the Lamb. That don't sound a whole lot like power to me. Dr. Lee Robertson used to say we preach a dynamite gospel and live a firecracker life. So this song says it's power, and we got firecrackers going on tonight. So let's sing. Let's lift it on the fourth verse. Here we go. Oh, you deserve it for Jesus, your King. Good, good. Would you just daily his praises to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power. Blood of the Lamb. Thank you, baby. See that Emily's going to come and sing for us. Come on, Emily.
There are times in this life when fear is so heavy and burdens weigh on your mind. You are weak in the knee and no strength can you find, but hold on, help's right on time. My Jesus is always on time, and though you may see a valley, he sees the mountain you'll be standing on. When all you can see are the tears falling down, I'm so glad he sees what we don't. I've seen his children walk through the darkest of midnight. I've witnessed faith put to the test, and I have watched as storms flew in with the thunder, but in each trial he knows what's best. And I'm so glad that he knows what's best. And though you may see a valley, he sees the mountain you'll be standing on. When all you can see are the tears falling down, I'm so glad he sees what we don't. He knows the end from the beginning. He looks ahead past the hope and the pain to a place where the peace
One of my favorite songs right there. That was good, good, good. Welcome to the greatest place in the whole wide world this Wednesday night. And hope you've been praying for your preacher. And with your preacher. And for one another. 3 key elements to a healthy, independent Baptist church. Pray for your preacher. And don't forget Daisy. Please pray for Daisy and Hudson Bethay, Kim Elder. These folks need our prayers. I tell you what, if it was my spouse, I would definitely want a bunch of people praying. And I'm telling you right now, if it was my child, yeah, I'd want people praying. So I think I'll do some praying. So don't forget that. Congratulations is in order tonight to my son-in-law and daughter. And Casey and Bethany. The ladies are pregnant. Joey said Sunday, talking about couples that say we're pregnant. Joey said, I ain't pregnant. So anyway, I'm just doggone excited. 5-Door Club record of visits due no later than Sunday night, okay? So don't forget those of you who are still knocking on doors, thank God for you. Make sure your record of visits is due in by Sunday night. Backline members, see Candy if you can help with that benefit coming up in May for Daisy. And choir practice Sunday at 5. And where's Josh? Happy birthday is in order for Josh. He was back on the 18th. Here he is today. So wish him a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Josh. And then, if you're a visitor with us, thank God for you being here at Calvary Hill. This is the first time you have been here. You have been given a visitor's card and a really nice pen. Fill that visitor's card out with that pen. You can keep that pen. And it's not my phone. But I would go ahead and turn that thing down now. Let's go ahead and stand and give the right hand fellowship. Make sure everybody feels welcome here at the greatest place in the whole wide world, Calvary Hill Baptist Church. People, why have the rest of y'all? We are not listening. If we have to sing this over and over and over and over, I'll do it. And you know I will. On the last verse, here we go. Kneel at the cross, give your idol God, come from the hymns above. Turn my way, to like sparkling God, trust only in His word. Please. Good, come on now. Kneel at the cross. Jesus will meet you there. Amen. That's real good. Randy, ask the Lord bless all.
Amen. Be seated, please. Children's offering.
when you were lost in sin and sorrow, I died to set you free, just so you would know what you mean to me. Did I walk on the water, and I called the raging sea? I spoke to the wind, and it hushed, and I gave you peace. Did not run to your rescue, did not hear you when you called. Walked right beside you, so you wouldn't fall. Did not leave all of heaven to die for your sin. Searched until I found you, and I do it all again.
Got something here. We don't have anything right here. We got it now? We got it now. All right. Get your Bible. Brother Dobbins is going to preach for us. So come on, man. Amen. You got it, man.
I get myself together here. I don't get your blessing going, there's something wrong with you. Good. I spent a portion of this last few days thinking about how God's answered prayer in the last year. It's been amazing to me how God talks and is interested in my life and in the things I'm asking Him. And it's just a wonderful blessing. Bethany being pregnant, been praying for that for a year, 2 years, 4 years, whatever, however long y'all been married. And it's amazing, you know, how God will listen to that. And we got about $40,000 raised for the house now. I found out a few days ago somebody was going to give another $10,000. So tremendous, really, how God listens and answers prayers, and even to the smallest thing. So I'm thankful for that, thankful that He is ever ready and present. You know, the devil, he's a dirty rascal. I mean, he'll tell you things that's lies that's really easy to believe, and have you believe in that. But God has always been true and good to me, and we've got about, I don't know, 75% or so of our support raised now. We'll keep working on that as we go along. Over the next year or so, Lord willing, we'll finish that house this year coming up, and then we'll have a bunch of bebopping boys in here for too long. Amen. I'll be scared of it. It's coming. And so I thank God He's answering prayers right and left in my life. Be much in prayer. I will ask you to pray for Kim. We are facing a pretty significant surgery where they'll repair those holes. Now, Kim ain't got a scratch. If you know much about pressure sores, I'll give you an idea about the size of one of them. You can fit a golf ball down in and you wouldn't never see the ball. So that's the size of one of the pressure sores she's got. So we're not talking about a scratch or nothing. We're talking about a pretty significant sore. It's been there almost 3 years. So they want to repair that thing. And in January 14th will be the surgery, and then we'll have about 6 weeks of recovery in a LTAC, a long-term acute care facility in Travelers Rest. And so that is something the devil has been fighting us about, and has almost had us convinced that she wasn't going to make it through that thing. It's amazing how crafty he is, but be much in prayer for that. I sure will appreciate it. Genesis chapter 34, if you'll open your Bibles. as you know, I have a little old farm I piddle with, and it's about all I do is piddle with it. But it's some people ask me, "You make any money?" No. On farming, no. And if a farmer tells you he's rich, he's lying. Ain't no farming you're gonna make no money on. But it's hopefully it pays for the feed and it gives you something to do and get dirty a little bit. Amen. Some people need to get dirty a little bit more. And so but I have a farm that I piddle with, and let me say this before I go any further. I appreciate this church, and I get tied up in a lot of those things, but I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it weren't for this church. And so I pray every morning for my church, because without you, I can't do what I do. And so I do appreciate you. I know sometimes I'm a weird dude. You can ask my class, and I tell them all the time, I'm weird. And you just can't, it's just the way I am. Yeah, I am. I'm weird now. You say amen. I know I'm weird, and so, but sometimes it comes across in the wrong way. And but I am appreciative of my preacher. I'm appreciative of my church, and I do appreciate what you do, because it's tremendous for me to be able to do what I do, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you very much for that, and all that you do for me. And the Sunday school class, Joy's Sunday school class supports me, so thank you for that too. I have a little farm that I piddle with, and I've got goats, cows, pigs, chickens, and all kind of little stuff. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about building some fences tonight. And listen, you may say, well, I don't got enough places to build no fences. You will. You'll see what I'm talking about in just a little bit. But I want to talk to you a little bit about how you can build some fences of your own, how God's shown me how to build my fences and how to do things within my life that it gives me a little bit of direction. And so hopefully it'll give you a little direction. And I want to talk to you a little bit about prayer in the same context, and we'll pull all that together. I'll tell you where we're going here in just a little bit. But I thought this would be interesting to me. It's interesting because I always want to step back. The last week of the year, I want to step back and I want to see what God's done for me. But the number one thing I want to do is I want to go forward for God. I want to go and do a little more. I want to go press a little harder. I want to go a little bit further with Him. And so that you can't do that without prayer. And so what I do in my life, and what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to now take my prayer life, and I want to be able to go and do a little bit more with it. I'm always anxious to be able to do that. I'm always a little bit hesitant too, because I know the hell that comes with that. And it's rough when it comes down to actually getting into the nuts and bolts of that thing. It ain't easy, and sometimes it hurts. And so, as with experience, I know what comes with that. But listen, I'm not going to back up from it. What I want to do is go forward, and I want to fight a little bit harder. And so the two go together. We'll get there in just a minute. Look in verse number 1. We'll read the first 5 verses here. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. And his soul clave unto Dinah, and the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel and spake kindly unto the damsel. And Shechem spake unto his father Hamor, saying, Get me this damsel to wife. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah his daughter, and now his sons were with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they were come. And now I want you to think about where Jacob is. I want you to think about the context a little bit about what we're talking about this evening. Jacob now, Dinah has gone out. No doubt Jacob has this girl, Dinah, his daughter, and I think that there's not before this, there's no girl that's mentioned that Jacob has. So no doubt, maybe Dinah is his only daughter. And so now this girl has gone out. She's not gone out on a mission trip, you see. She's not gone out to hand out tracts or to witness to folks. What she said was, hey, there's something over there that looks a little bit sparkly. There's something over there that ain't down here at Daddy's house. They do things differently over there. They dress differently over there. And I'm interested in what's over there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of Daddy's house and I'm going to go over here and see what the daughters of the land are doing. And so now Dinah picks up and she gets out of Daddy's house, and she says, hey, I'm going to go over here. And then she gets into a mess. And I've heard different things and different folks. I've read after different folks of whether she was, I believe she was raped. I mean, I don't think she went looking for that. That kind of goes with the territory, but she didn't go looking for what she got. Now Shechem takes her, and he lays with her, and the Bible clearly says that he defiled her. And so now what happens with Dinah is Dinah now is in a place where she didn't expect to be. Dinah now has gotten down to a place where she's been taken and raped and not let go home. I want you to think about that. Well, somebody took your daughter. They kept her. She wouldn't let her come home. I mean, for me, I'm not going, Jake, sometimes what happens is now Dinah has gone out and gotten into a mess, and then these guys come back, and they're sitting in her daddy's living room talking to him like it's okay. I mean, and listen, now, you know what Jacob does in verse number 5? Jacob sits back and says, wait a minute now, I don't want to do what I think I want to do. I better take a little bit of time here. I can't just jump at the first thing. I don't know that I would have had. It says in verse number 5, Jacob held his peace. And sometimes the hardest thing for you and I to do is to hold your peace. You see, sometimes what you got to do is you got to step back and see, I want to see what God's doing in this thing. I can't just lash out because there's more to this thing than just me and just Dinah. Hey, I got to think about all the other things. And so now Jacob has stepped out and said, hey, I got to take a step back. That ain't what I'd want to do. Hey, I'd be sitting there with a ball bat and say, you fellas, I'm going to tell you something right now. Hey, you going to go get my girl or I'm going to beat your brains in right here in my house. That ain't what Jacob done. And sometimes that ain't the right thing to do. Sometimes what you got to do is step back and say, wait a minute, I need to see where God's at with this thing. Now Jacob is in a hard spot. He has to reevaluate that thing. And he has to come back through. And listen, sometimes what you got to do is you got to step back into those things that you've already established. You see, I believe that Jacob was a praying man. I believe Jacob now had set some boundaries in his own life and in the lives of his children. And what he has said is he said, hey, I've got some boundaries here. I can't just step outside of those boundaries because when I do that, now what I've got to do is I'm going to have a mess. Well, what Dinah's done is she stepped outside those boundaries. You see, Jacob's already built a few fences in his life through prayer. And now, what's happened is his daughter has got through a hole in the fence somehow. And no doubt Jacob didn't like that. But what Jacob has to do is now take a little bit of time to figure out where that hole's at. And I believe that's what he's doing. Look at verse number 7. The sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved. And they wrought folly. They were very wroth, and they were very wroth because he had wrought folly in Israel and lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be. Now, what jumped off the page when I was studying this is that last phrase there, what ought not to be. Now, Dinah's gone out. She made a bad decision. But what's happened is that she got in a mess. But now those guys are sitting, and those guys have come back to Jacob and his sons, and they're there, and they're wanting to keep her because now he's found something he didn't have before, and so now he's keeping her. But what his kids knew, what them boys knew, is that it ought not have been that way. You see, what happens with you and I is that we have to make sure that our kids understand what they ought to be and what ought not to be. Dinah knew she shouldn't have left. Hang in here. I'm going somewhere. Just hang in here with me. Listen, do your kids, do my kids know what they ought to do and what they ought not to do? Do they know that? Do they, listen, in your house, are you setting some boundaries within that like Jacob's done so that they know, hey, I ought not to do that. I ought not to be doing this. I ought not to be acting like this. I ought not to be dressing like this. I ought not to be hanging around with these folks. Do your kids know that? You say, well, we go to church here. Yeah, I know you do. Well, let me tell you, I'll give you this story. Jacob has set some boundaries in his life. I bought this piece of property. I got here, it ain't much. It's about 12 acres or something, just something to fiddle with. But when I bought, that thing was slam full there in Woodruff. I mean, slam full of briars and mess. I had to take a bush hog and cut a fence row so I could put some fences up. It was that high. I mean, it was high. It was high through there. You couldn't see yourself. You couldn't see the tractors that went down through there. It was so thick. And so what happened is I just come in there and I said, hey, I'm not going to put no fences up. I'm just going to run my goats straight up in here. I'm going to take them and I'm going to pull up in here and I'm going to run my goats and my cows. I'm going to run them, just let them go. I ain't building no fences. So then I'll tell you what will happen is they'll just eat all this up and they'll stay right here. That'd be all right. I mean, I got neighbors on this side, and I got neighbors on this side. Back across the railroad tracks, some neighbors. That'd be all right. Neighbors will run home. Yeah, my neighbors would have called, and they would have said, if you don't come get these goats out of my azaleas, I'm going to shoot them. At least that's what I do. No, that ain't what I did. You know what I did is I had to run a fence line. And then I pulled up in that fence and I let them goats out in the fence. But you know what we do and what we think is that, hey, we just pull up in here and we just let our kids go and we don't have to worry about them because what will happen is they'll come back one day. We don't have to pray about them. We got a good church and you know, we love Jesus and we don't have to do a family devotion because our kids already know they know. You don't have to pray. Don't worry about all that stuff. We just let them run out there, and then eventually they'll come back. I mean, that's really, if you be honest with yourself, you gotta evaluate your life and listen. Have you set some boundaries for your kids? If not, what they gonna do? And I'm not. Listen, I'm just making a comparison. I've met some kids that need to be put in the fence. Like my goats is in a fence. I've met some. And I'm not saying that you should do that, put them in a cage or nothing like that. Don't get me wrong. Maybe you should for a little while, but maybe you got to let them out and all. Feed them anyway. But listen, I'm not. But help! I want you to imagine what's happening in your home. Are you building fences? Are you doing anything to set boundaries for your children? Are you setting anything out there saying, "Hey, this is how far you can go. This is how much you get. You can't go no farther than that." Are you doing that? Or are you just pulling up in there and saying, hey, if I just let them go, they'll come back someday. You can say what you want, but listen, that's where we're at in America today. You know, we're worried about everything else in the world, and we're not worried about our kids. We're not worried about our family. Hey, we just let them roll and let them roam, and then they'll figure out what's right and what's wrong on their own, and that's what's happening in America. They've figured out, hey, I can decide what's right and what's wrong. You got to be careful where you do and what boundaries you set up. And young folks, listen, you got to be careful. Yes, and your mom and daddy love you. And when you hit that fence and bounce off of it, that's a good thing. There has to be. You got to know where the boundaries are, and sometimes to get those boundaries set, you got to hit them. I let a cow out one time. She was probably 1,000 pounds. I don't know, and it was right at dusk. That ain't a good time to let cows out of the trailer if they're a little bit wild. And so that cow come out. Listen, she come out of the trailer. When I opened the back door, she come out there full barrel, and she didn't quit till she hit a fence. And then she hit that fence and kind of rolled one side, and I was wondering if my fence was going to hold. And then she got up and kind of shook off a little bit, and then she went the other way as fast as she could go and hit the other fence. I thought, my God, I'm going to be fixing fence for the next 2 months. If she don't quit it, but she finally figured out, hey, I don't think I'm going to get through that thing. And listen, what you got to realize, and you got to hold strong to your fence. You can't just let them run over that thing. Because if I'd have let them that cow run through that fence and not watched her, hey, I'd have never seen her again. And listen, no doubt there's some people that maybe listening tonight, somebody is sitting here tonight. Listen, that's exactly what's happening is they've hit it, and eventually they're going to run through it. You got to be careful where you set your boundaries. Make sure they're strong. You make sure that you got that thing set like you ought to be. And listen, your kids need to know they need to know what ought to be and what ought not to be. Look at verse number 8 there. And Hamor communed with them. Communing with this dude. I tell you, that makes me mad when I read that. And Hamor communed with them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you give him to wife. And look at verse 9. And make ye marriages with us, and give your daughters unto us, and take your daughters unto you, and you shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you, dwell and trade ye therein, and get you possessions therein. And Shechem said unto her father and unto her brethren, let me find grace in your eyes, and what you shall say unto me, I will give. Now, these guys seem genuine. I'll tell you, I got one son-in-law in the building and another one. I've had young men come through my house, and they'll sit before me, and I don't cut them no slack. When these boys was courting, my daughters, listen, I sat there and I grilled them and I wanted to understand who they was, where they was at, what their interest was, and we didn't play around with dating. Listen, we didn't just go anywhere and date here and date there and date over there and date over here, and maybe this guy's it, maybe no. What we did was we said, hey, we are interested in marriage, and when them boys come in to talk to me, I asked them, are you interested in marrying her? Well, you should have seen some of the faces I got. I didn't really think about that. But now, and they are wolves out there, you see. But see, now what's happened is that wolves got in, or trying to get in. And let me tell you this, fences are made to keep stuff in as well as they are to keep stuff out. You see, a lot of times what will happen, young folks, is that you'll look at those fences and you'll say, I don't like the boundaries. I don't like that's put up. I don't like what's keeping me away from what I want. I don't like all that stuff because I want to do what I want to do. And when you hit those things, listen, you'll hit them and they bounce back. And listen, that's for your good. But it's just as much for the good of keeping stuff out as it is for keeping stuff in, you see. You see, you don't know. Listen, you don't know what's out there. You don't know what your mom and daddy can see. I tell you, I was praying over a particular matter that bothered me, and God showed it to me. I mean, it's not because of me. He just did, and it scared me. And I got to talking to Kim, and I thought, man, this is. But listen, that's what's happening when you start building fences. You'll start being able to see stuff out there that, listen, those dangers, and those things will get more and more sensitive to what and it'll make you want to pray more because you can see things out there that you may not necessarily saw before. You see, if I'm walking around and I see dog tracks outside of my fence, that makes me want to, hey, I got to watch a little closer. You know why? Because they're getting close. You see, if they get up and they walk that fence enough, they'll find a way in. And listen, what you got to do is you got to make sure that you're inspecting those fences and you're constantly putting attention to those fences and you're pushing and making them stronger and better. And then listen, if you find the hole, no doubt Dinah found the hole in that fence. And if you look hard enough, you'll find the hole in that fence. You listening? Listen, young folks. If you look hard enough, you will find a hole in the fence that you'll be able to slip out of. But you don't know what's on the other side of that fence. On the other side of that fence might be a Shechem. On the other side of that fence, listen, there may be somebody else out there that says, hey, you don't know what's there. You got to be careful and you got to trust those folks. Listen, you got to trust your mom and daddy. You got to trust what they know and what they can see through their prayer life. And listen, mom and daddy, you got to pray for your kids. I told my family this week when we was doing our Christmas thing, I said, hey, if you can't pray for nobody else, you pray for your family. You know what they need. But you know what we do when we run here and there and all over the place, and we neglecting what's at home. I know, I've been there, man. It's terrible, and I know it's tough to gather all that stuff together. But I want you to think about where you at. Where are you tonight in your prayer life? I'll tell you this before I go much further, and I got to hurry on. When I pulled up in there, in that land I was telling you about, it was so high and thick, and I had to cut fence rows. But you know what I didn't do all at one time? I didn't get all that fence done in one day. I mean, I didn't. If you ever strung any fence or done anything, hey, you don't get it all done in one day. You got to stretch a little piece, and maybe I'll run 100 foot here, maybe I'll run another 200 foot there, and eventually what you do is you get that thing boxed in, and then you put out, listen, then you go around and you make sure everything's good and clear, and there ain't no problems, and nothing fell down, and nothing fell on it, and then what you can do is put animals in there, but you got to make sure that that fence is good, but it don't all happen in one night. It don't happen in one day, so what you got to do is you might say tonight, hey, I don't have a prayer life. You might say tonight, and some of you ain't even interested in having a prayer life, and listen, you need to check your salvation, but if you're saved and you're in here, and you've got a family, and you got kids, and your grandkids, they ain't hardly nobody sitting here, and they got kids and grandkids, or some nieces, nephews, or something. Hey, what you got to do is start with the first stretch of fence. And you get that thing stretched, and you get it good and tight, and you get it good and nice and neat, and then you move on to the next one, and you can't do it all in one day. You see, I want to get stuff done. I'd rather work all day and all night and get it done than I had to do it a piece at a time. But prayer don't work like that. You see, prayer takes time every day, a little bit of every day, and you build this section, and then you build this section, and then you build this section, and eventually you got a little piece, and then you go back, and you keep on moving out, and it took me probably 6 months to get the whole place fenced in. But listen, I got it fenced in nice like I wanted it to because I stayed after it. And listen, maybe you backed off, maybe you slacked off, maybe you just need to start, but you got to start. You got to get back at it. You got to stay with it. Don't quit in the middle. Listen, I got a place. I borrowed a fellow's bobcat, and I lost that bobcat in the place. I mean, that thing dove down. It was rough, and I didn't know what I was getting into, and I almost stopped. I mean, I almost was like, man, I ain't doing this no more. But when I come back out of that little low spot, come back on the top, everything smoothed back out. When I was running the fence line, clearing it with that bobcat. And if you think there ain't going to be no low spots when you're praying, man, there's going to be more low spots than high spots probably. And you got to get after that thing, and you can't quit. You got to stay with it. Listen, there's too much at stake here. You got to make sure that you stay after that thing. Look in verse number 14. I got to move on here. I thought I had too much time. And they said unto them, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised. For that were reproached us. So now these guys have said, hey, we'll just marry and mingle with each other, and we'll just have a jolly old time. We'll be one big family here. And so now what Jacob's son, now Jacob's out of the picture. I don't know what happened to him. And now there's his son step up and say, well, we got a plan of our own. We got an idea of our own. If you'll just be circumcised, then we can do what you want us to do. And so, let's read on there, verse 15. But in this will we consent to you, if you will be as we be, that every male of you be circumcised. Then we will give our daughters unto you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. I did read this before I come, I promise. It ain't the same being up here as it is being down there. But listen, what these guys want to do is they want to mingle with each other, but God's already told Jacob, don't do that. And so now Jacob's in a tight spot. He don't want to do that, but he don't want to make everybody mad neither. But now his boys come up with an idea. They got an idea how they can fix this thing, and they got an idea of how they can do this thing. And so now they told them guys, they said, hey, if you'll be circumcised, we can all have one big family. We can do all this. And listen, we'll give and take, and we can barter and trade, and we'll take some land and your daughters, and we'll give our daughters to you, and hey, we'll just all be one big family. Listen, these guys got something up their sleeve. See, then I thought about this as I was reading too. Where's Jacob at? Now, Jacob stepped back too long. This is Jacob's responsibility to be telling them fellas that, not his boys. His boys come up with a plan, and now Jacob stepped back and said, well, I'll just let my kids take care of it. And see, that's the other temptation. Instead of waiting, sometimes you have to take a step back, and sometimes you don't want to deal with it. Sometimes it is that you don't want to deal with that thing, and so you just take a step all the way back. And you say, I'll just let somebody else deal with this thing. But listen, when your prayer life is in the good shape and you'll start getting direction. I never realized the direction I would get in times like that. You get in a hard spot, God will start talking to you. I mean, you get down in a place and listen, you're familiar with him, and you've been praying, he'll start talking to you and giving you a little bit of direction. And listen, now Jacob's taken too far a step back, and these boys have stepped in his place and said, hey, I got an idea. They got an idea, all right. They're trying to convince these guys to do something that ought not be. Now, I want you to look in verse number 22. Now, these guys go back to their hometown, and they give their hometown a pitch. Look in verse number 22. Only herein will have been consented to us for to dwell with us, to be one people, if every male among us be circumcised as they are circumcised. Shall not their cattle... Listen, I want you to think about this before I go any further. That guy must be one heck of a salesman. Can you imagine somebody coming pitching that to you and you well into age there a little bit? I don't know that I'd go for all that now. But this guy now, he goes back and he says, hey, this is all we got to do. We just got to be circumcised, and and then what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to do, we'll look in verse number 23. And this is really what they're looking for. Shall not their cattle and their substance, every beast of theirs, be ours? Only let us consent to them, and they will dwell with us. That's what they want. You see, these wolves are pacing the fence, but they're not looking for them little lambs. They're looking for the boss. They'll take those lambs, but what they want to do is they want the whole kit and caboodle. Hey, they want the whole operation. They're not coming in here to say, hey, we just take one or two. What they want to do is they want to go around. They want the whole thing. And listen, those folks that are running your fence and those folks that are coming in to your family, those folks that are attacking, they're not interested in those that have gone out. They're not interested in the Dinas. They're not interested. What they're interested in is your prayer life. That's what they're interested in. You see, when these wolves come in, it's not that they are interested in just taking one and then they'll be satisfied. They want the whole thing. These guys said, hey, if we'll consent to them, then eventually we'll be just like them, and they'll just be just like us. And there won't be no difference. Let me ask you this. When David went into Gath, you know what happened? He had to change his behavior to get out of that place because he was in the wrong way. Hey, is your behavior and your actions any different from them around you? Is there anything different about your family? When your neighbors come around, are they saying, hey, there's something different about them? I told my neighbor, she come over, she's got a little boy about James's age, and she come over, she said, I want them to play together. I said, no. She said, well, just call me sometime. She's trying to back out of it then. No, we're not doing that. You know why? I don't know what they do over there. I don't know what they do at her house. They may be drinking and smoking. I don't know. I don't know what they're watching. He ain't going over there. As long as he's at my house, he ain't going over there. But you know why? Because, hey, we have to watch after that. We have to make sure that we're guarding after that. Why? Because, listen, you got to be careful where your kids go. You can't just mix and mingle. That's exactly what they want. It won't be long. You'll be looking up and wondering what in the world happened here. Always prevent everything you're not going to, but I want to be ready as I can be, and I don't want my kids to make a mess out of things after what's happened. Listen, I want to pray enough where I can say, hey, God, I want to see this thing before it gets here, and I know that's not going to happen every time. A lot of things I can't see, but that's my goal. That's what I want to be prepared as much as I can be. And I'll tell you this. Listen, I don't want you to get the wrong idea because I'm way far off. I think about my prayer life, and I think, man, I mean, I'm not even close to where I want to be or even what I think I should be. But I want it. I want it. I want to do it. Do you want to do it? You do what you want to do. I got to move on here. Let's look in verse number. What else stop at? Verse 28. And they took their sheep and their oxen and their asses, and that which was in the city and that which was in the field, and all their wealth, and all their little ones and their wives took they captive, and spoiled even all that was in the house. Now these guys made a mess. These guys, and listen, these guys, no doubt, they were probably up in age, and Jacob didn't have full control over them. But you can see where they went and spoiled, and they took the wives and young ones. of these men that they killed. So that sin that they had contrived there in asking them to be circumcised now comes full circle. And it comes back around to where these guys are at. Now that sin, now they're doing the same exact thing that these other guys wanted to do. They're taking their wives and their little ones. They're taking them back. And so now they've made a mess of this thing. They've dealt wrong with what Jacob wanted them to do. And now what Jacob has said, hey, you've made a mess of this thing. Look at verse number 30. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, ye have troubled me to make me distinct among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and Perizzites, and being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. And now Jacob has to dig out of a mess that his boys made. Listen, I don't know that Jacob's prayer life would have prevented. I don't know all that. I don't know. Maybe it would have, maybe not. Maybe this is something God put there so that we'd have that. And for sure, that's something, I don't know. I don't know what could have happened. But what I want to be able to do is say, Lord, I want to be ready when these things come about, because I've been in messes like that. I have. My life has been in a place where I was not prepared when that thing came. When Kim, we first had our wreck, I didn't have a prayer life. And I was chasing after money. And I've preached that. You got that, and you know that. And most of you have heard that. And I don't have to rehash that. But listen, what I did is that thing came. And when it came, I was not prepared. I mean, I had to spend weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks in just torture. You know why? Because God said, hey, I'm going to let you sit on that because I want you to remember that. I want you to think about this. Listen, maybe that thing's knocking on the door tonight. And your prayer life, I'm not saying it's going to go away. I'm just telling you that prayer life will change things in it. It'll make a difference in it. And so what I encourage you to do tonight, I encourage you, listen, build those fences, build them as strong as you can. You can't control everything. They're going to find a hole eventually if they're looking hard enough. Young folks, don't look when you bounce off that fence. Appreciate that amongst your mom and daddy. But listen, build those fences hard as you can, high as you can, strong as you can through prayer so that when the hard times come, listen, you're ready. As ready as you'll be. I think about this too, and I think there's a lesson here, and a lot of different ways. I think I did this in Sunday school, and it was a little different context. But you imagine if Dinah would have had a prayer life. Can you imagine? I mean, are you Dinah tonight? You looking for a hole? Not interested in your mom and daddy standards? If Dinah would have had a prayer life, none of this mess would ever come about. I mean, that's my opinion. If she would have been looking in the right way and been looking for what God wanted her to do, she'd have never been looking at the daughters of the land. I encourage you, and you may say, well, I'm only 10 years old. Start praying now. It takes a while to build them fences up. It takes a while to build what you got, what you need, what you're going to need. Can you imagine the mess that she created for her family? This is Dinah's fault. If she hadn't went out, there wouldn't have been a mess. But because she decided, I'm not interested in what Mom didn't want to do, hey, I do my own thing. Now what she's done is she's made a mess of it. And I think about that for me. If my life is a mess, it don't just affect me. If my prayer life's not in the right way, it don't just affect me. If I'm not building them fences, it's not just about me. Hey, Dinah now made a huge mess, and no doubt that sin followed her brothers for a long time. No doubt that thing it took a full course, but now what she could have done was prevented the whole thing. And what I'll say to you tonight is that maybe that thing's knocking at the door. Hey, maybe you have the opportunity to prevent that thing tonight. I encourage you, build them fences. Build them fences strong and long and tall and strong, because there'll be one day you'll need them fences. Listen, stay after that thing and like nothing else. What I want in my life, and I'm not even close to what I want, is I want that thing to be real. I want it to be something that moves me and changes me. That's my prayer. That's what I want to be able to do. I encourage you tonight, if you don't, start with that first line of fence. If you ain't got nothing, start with it. Start with that first line of fence. I encourage you to do that tonight. Thank you, Preacher.
All right, let's stand together, please. Travis is going to play an invitation hymn. If the Lord dealt with your heart about anything at all during this message, the Word of God spoke to you and invite you to come, respond to the invitation right now. Come on. Set some boundaries in your life. Build some fences. And put there to protect you. Not necessarily lock you in or lock others out.